The 18th of August 2014, 12 a.m. Bean Blossom, Indiana. At a campground in Brown County, a fellow camper seemed interested in watching the plane traffic. After a short lull, he pointed out what he assumed was another plane much closer than the others seen. He then found something terrestrial to grab his attention and took no more notice. Although storms were moving into the area, the sky above at that time was clear. This object was slightly south of our location, moving nearly due west. The shape of the object could be clearly seen as having 8 sides like a stop sign with sharp ends instead of rounded. There was a starburst pattern of lights on the bottom that pulsed in a line from one end to the other in the direction of travel. At the apparent distance, I would guess the speed to have been just over 100 miles per hour. Lost sight of the object as it passed behind a line of trees. Summary: object made no sound. Other craft in the area did. Object was moving against the breeze. Not likely a blimp or similar lighter than aircraft, which would also have had some type of engine to propel it in that direction. Octagon shape. Starburst pattern of light on bottom. No other lights visible. If there were no deviation in the flight path, the object would have had to have passed over Camp Atterbury, a military camp, approximately 2 miles due east of our location.
The 25th of October 2014, 12 a.m. Bean Blossom, Indiana camping. I noticed a steady bright light to the northwest. Watching for about a minute, it didn't stop or deviate from its course to the southeast. After passing, about halfway from straight up to the horizon, the light seemed to dim like I was out of direct line of beam. No navigation lights on the sides. No belly warning flasher. And no sound. Now the strange part. When out of the direct line of the bright light, the outline could still be seen. Even at a range of a few hundred feet, that light would have had to be huge, yards across. As if to confirm I didn't miss anything, there were several other commercial craft in and around the area. All had the expected lights and most made enough noise to hear. About 2 hours later, a jet, on a similar heading to the silent one, was heard and when found had the expected navigation and belly lights. This was the same area where I saw my flying stop sign a few weeks ago. My location was 39*19 feet 23 inches N86 13 feet 9 inches W. I first sighted the object to the NW at about 50*. At the closest it was about 80*, up to the SW. Out of the direct light at about 35*, lost sight behind trees at about 40*, elevation to the SE.
The 8th of June 2015, 12 a.m. Nashville, Indiana. Driving home from work at about 11 p.m. Roughly, there was a thunderstorm brewing. No rain yet, but a lot of lighting. Up in the sky to the north and east of me, I see the lights. At first I saw 4, and they seemed to be in a formation, and slightly drifting. I was driving about 45 miles per hour, and trying to keep my eye on the backcountry road, and our region is hilly with many trees. I kept looking up, and though I either saw one light release a smaller light, or there was perhaps another object of the same size further in the distance. I lost them behind the tree line, and when I got to another clearing, I couldn't see them anymore. Note, there is a military base in that general direction. These were definitely not planes, and I would strongly suggest they weren't helicopters. I have seen plenty of both.
The 12th of July 2017, 7:45 p.m. Driving eastbound 35 miles per hour. On North Shore Drive, Unionville Inn. I brake abruptly as I notice something above the road in front of me. I am confused because the object is so low to the road and stretches across the entire road. I for a moment think I'm about to drive under a train trestle. However, there is no train track. YHAT goes over the road in this particular area. I can see a huge black outline of a massive hovering object. My headlights reflected some light off the object and I noticed 2 white circle vent fans on the underside of the object, directly above me. I'm already directly underneath the object by the time I get the vehicle to a stop. I had my truck window cracked, and I suddenly hear this very, very loud noise as if mass amounts of air under pressure had been released. I felt the air move. At this point became incredibly frightened and drove away as fast as possible. I didn't see it again after that.
The 14th of July 1974, 10 p.m. Belmont, Indiana. This happened in the warm months of 1974, but I can't remember exactly what month it was. This observation occurred in southern Indiana, on State Road 46, east of Bloomington, out near Belmont. I make no claims as to what it was I saw, except that it is unexplainable by what I know. I'm a licensed private pilot, SEL, and an amateur astronomer, with a Bachelor's of Science degree and have worked in microelectronics my whole career. I was out cruising on my motorcycle at about 10 p.m. this one night. Clear sky and new moon not visible. I was on a rural 2-lane state road highway and saw what at first I thought was a helicopter up ahead turning its underslung searchlight on and off intermittently. The craft wasn't lit, but the beam of light was visible, illuminating the trees up on a ridgeline down the road from me. I decided it was probably the state police and they were looking for someone or something, and so I pulled off to the side of the road and turned my engine off and removed my helmet. I didn't want to ride into a police activity event up ahead. First thing I noticed after stopping and removing my helmet is there was no sound, which is odd because I wasn't all that far away and there were no navigation lights or strobes on the craft. I had been heading east and this craft was searching a ridgeline perpendicular, running north-south. It was hovering over the ridge at something like 100 feet above it. It slowly moved north, paused and then slowly moved south while intermittently turning on its searchlight high-intensity beam down into the trees on the top of the ridge. At some time during its southward movement, it stopped using the searchlight and the craft started glowing a bit, kind of like a very low wattage incandescent light bulb. It vectored to the southwest, out over an open farm field, towards me but off to my right. All of this now has taken under 10 minutes but probably greater than 5 minutes. The object was dead silent. It moved in that southwest direction until it was about 400 to 500 yards from me. I remember thinking that with the craft glowing, I couldn't make out any particular shape. I was actually starting to feel concerned, because I knew this was something I had no idea what it was. I was uncomfortable, because I didn't know if it was a threat or not. It finally stopped moving and was about 50 feet minus 100 above the plowed farm field. It didn't change or do anything for a minute, until the glow started increasing in intensity and brightness. It got very bright. Then, all of a sudden, it shot straight up. I remember thinking as its glowing diameter shrunk smoothly, as it got higher in altitude, to really focus on it so I didn't lose sight of it in the stars. But that's what happened. It got so small, I couldn't pick it out of the thousands of stars in the perfectly clear sky. The rapid ascent took less than 10 seconds. You can imagine what was going through my mind. The other thing that I noticed was that no other cars or trucks went by on State Route 46 for that 10 minutes I saw this object. I got back on my motorcycle and rode back into Bloomington and stopped by a friend's house and told him the story. He had a Toyota Land Cruiser and we decided at first light to take a ride out to the ridgeline in the morning. Early the next morning, we found a trail at the base of the ridge and drove back through the trees and meadows until we couldn't go any further. We climbed the ridge and started walking up on top of the ridge and into an opening in the trees up there. We found a wild grassy area that was about 3 feet tall that had been spiral flattened that looked to be about 30 feet in diameter. Within that, my friend and I found 3 pad impressions, circular indentations about 10-12 in diameter, in the ground that formed a perfect equilateral triangle. Was that related to the craft I saw the night before? I don't know. I never knowingly saw it land, but it sure is an odd coincidence. That's what I saw. I've been keeping this secret for a long time due to the stigma, but now that UFOs are becoming more accepted, I am starting to talk about my experience 45 years ago. Just for added clarity, at the beginning of the observation, when the vertical light beam was going on, off intermittently, the object was dark. Later in the observation it started having a dull glow, and then just prior to its rapid vertical ascent, the object was glowing very brightly. I just want to be clear that the appearance changed, and I cannot say exactly what the shape was. I know from my aviation experience that this object had nothing in common with how I know aircraft operate. I have no idea what it was that I saw, and it was 1974. Back then state-of-the-art aviation was the F-15 Eagle. This object was certainly not that. All I know is that this event made me have an open mind for decades. In filling out the form, the one question on eyeglasses, I answered that I wear them, which is true today. Back during the UFO event in 1974, I had 20/10 vision at 21 years old. Much better than average.
The 30th of May 2022, 10:45 a.m. Nashville, Indiana saw a glowing white light moving across the sky fairly slowly. Brighter than anything else in sky. After about a minute it got dimmer and suddenly disappeared, and was immediately followed by what looked like an orange shooting star beneath where it disappeared. Seen by several people, this form is very awkward to use.